Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. So I forgot to film the intro and the outro to the third part of the bookshop tour when I was in Italy, and yeah, that's it. I hope you like it. There will be more English fiction in this particular video because one of my shelves is actually dedicated to English books. Okay, so now we're coming to the sections where we have mixed fiction, mainly in English right now, but they are mostly books that haven't found a place anywhere else, especially here. Then underneath it has a sense. So I mean, don't judge me right now. These are just mixed books. They have to find a place. Archipelago Gulag by Solzhenitsyn. I have to read this one. I started it. It's probably the most famous book by Solzhenitsyn. And yeah, I mean, if you know me, I'm passionate about Russian history, and here the whole situation, the Gulag situation, is described. So yes. Then I have, well, we can skip this one, but it's a collection of graphic novels. Then there is Limonov by Carrière. This is about a political figure more than an historical figure. And it's sort of a novel, sort of a not a novel. It's the biography of this person, and I feel like if you are interested in Russia, you should read this book, especially about the current situation in Russia. Then a useless book, a chess book, Everville, which I don't. Yes, it should be Everville in English too, by Barker, which I loved. A Passage to India by Foster, which is an amazing novel. I really don't understand why some people don't like this novel. It's amazing. Another book by Christie, which, yeah, we can skip. A series of writings by Newton, which are okay, but they are writings or on light, and I don't really care about that part. The Complete Unabridged Journals of Sylvia Plath by Sylvia Plath, of course. Sorry, I wanted to say they were edited by Kukil, whatever. Anyway, these of course are the whole things, and I started it. I sometimes read one page or two. I feel like I should bring this one with me to Germany if I want to actually complete it in a decent time. And same goes with The Pale King by David Foster Wallace, which again I started, but I have to finish. Then I have, oh god, I should know this one. It's like the Trio by Weiss. This is an amazing play about the whole situation of the concentration camps in Germany. Read this one, please. An Italian book which we can skip. Then I have a few of the books that I showed the other day. They are philosophy books, and these are all the ones that I want to bring. These are all the ones that I want to bring with me to Germany, and they are written by Italian authors. I mean, we can just skip them. I feel like, I mean, the most interesting one, I mean, the one that I'm most interested in is this one that has the letters Antonio Gramsci wrote when he was in jail. And if you know who this guy is, look it up because he's important. Then I have a few books I bought because they were on bargain. I mean, I went to a used bookshop and I just bought all of them. Now the only book in Italian is this one, which is by Calvino, and is a retelling of the Orlando Furioso, which is an epic poem. It's one of the epic poems Italian wrote throughout history, and this is a shortening and prose version of it, which I want to check out before I actually read the poem. And then I have the other ones are in English. We have Villette by Charlotte Bronte, and yes, I've been meaning to read this one for forever. Everybody Speaks really well about this book, and I do want to read this. Then we have the contemporary, the contemporary tales by Chaucer, which I want to read, and I've been wanting to read ever since I studied them in high school, or I mean the Italian equivalent of it. The Correction by Franzen. I wanted to read Franzen I've been wanting to read. I'm going to say the same thing all over again. But yeah, I want to start from this book because I feel like it should contain at least the writing style should be that one. And I want to get used to it. But I'm most interested in reading Freedom because I had done it actually in high school. And it sounded really interesting, but yeah, I feel like this should be easier for some reason. I have no idea why. Then I don't think you can see what this book is, but this is A Room with a View by Ian Forster. I started it so many times, and I also started the movie, but I never finished either the book or the movie. And yeah, then I found it in the Penguin English Library thing, and I'm just collecting them because they are pretty and because they are interested, but I just collect them because they are pretty. And of course, reading them, it doesn't depend on the edition. I want to read A Room with a View, but yeah, I got it in this edition because it was prettier. Same goes for The Mill on the Floss by George Eliot. By her, I read Middlemarch, and I should reread Middlemarch because, yeah, I feel now the period wasn't right probably, but I didn't enjoy it, even though it should check all the things that I like about a book. And so yeah, it's a bit but I want to check out some other things by her. And the last one is the New York Trilogy by Paul Auster, by whom I want to read the last book for some reason, his latest book. So yeah, whatever. Then we go down here. You can see there are a few David Mitchell, a book that doesn't fit here, but yeah. And the Penguin English Library, Penguin Classics again, just other editions, and Penguin Modern Classics here, and some other books there. So by David Mitchell, I have Cloud Atlas, Number 9 Dream, The Bone Clocks, and The Thousand Autumns of Jakob de Zoet. No idea how you pronounce this thing. I should reread Cloud Atlas in English. I loved Number 9 Dreams, probably my favorite David Mitchell. The Bone Clocks is amazing. Everybody who thinks otherwise doesn't really understand David Mitchell. The Thousand Autumns of this guy is nice. It's probably... Oh, I'm getting divine. Sorry, the sun. The writing is amazing because it's just so pretty and poetic and amazing at times, but it's not his strongest novel, I think. The Luminaries by Eleanor Catton, amazing crime novel written as though it was an 1800 novels, but it's not. Then the Penguin English Library guys, they are Pride and Prejudice, which I hated, The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins, which I loved, and if you want to start reading classics, start from this one. Middlemarch by George Eliot, I said already that I want to read that. Tom Jones by Henry Fielding. As you can see by the thing, I loved the first part, I hated everything that comes from here on. North and South by Elizabeth Casco, which is basically Pride and Prejudice, but done properly because there are communist people. Moby Dick by Melville, which I love, and people who think the part where he describes the whales are boring, I don't know. Just reconsider them. And Pamela by Richardson, which I hated. Then we have a few other Austens. I loved Mansfield Park. This is my favorite of her books. Persuasion is nice. I feel like it's better than Pride and Prejudice. this may be an unpopular opinion, but I liked it much more, even though it's not my favorite. And then we have Hard Times by Dickens, which is one of his books. Yeah, of course it's one of his books, but it's one of the books that I hate by him. I'm a fan of Dickens because it's like a secure place where I can go to, but Hard Times wasn't. Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, which is amazing, and also maybe if you want to start reading classics, this is a good first step towards them. The Turn of the Screw and Other Stories by Henry James. I only read The Turn of the Screw. I liked it a lot. I liked the writing more than the plot, and I want to check out other things by him. Thomas Hardy, Far from the Merry Crowd, amazing. Again, it's the usual. Well, it's not really the usual plot by Austen or other guys or girls in this case. Well, guys in this case, girls in the other cases. There's a cheating going on. There is it's not really a cheating though. There is love stuff and people not understanding each other. It's quite cute. It's not the most amazing book ever, but it's cute. The Complete Plays by Christopher Marlowe. Loved it. Loved every single play in it. Of course, The Tragedy of Dr. Faustus is my favorite one. The Profundis and Other Writings by Oscar Wilde. I don't know if I said that in in English, sorry, but I said certainly that in Italian, but I prefer the non-fiction writings by Oscar Wilde, and so this is one of my favorite books ever. I, Claudius by Robert Grace, which I didn't like. A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man by Joyce, which I loved. And I feel like this is an approachable Joyce, so you should read that. Especially if you are, I don't know, 16 going on 70, or 17, not 70, or something like that. I read it when I was 21, I think. So it's a good place at which to read this book, I feel. On the Road by Jack Kerouac, which I just noticed I skipped in the Italian version, but yeah, anyway, I did like it. I feel like I want to learn to read more by him. I'm not a giant fan of the Beat Generation, but yeah, it's a good book. And a pretty decent book, which is 1984, is one of my favorite. In 2 editions, I want to read this one now. Not because it's any different, but because I read this one, and every time I reread that, I want to have a new edition right now because of collection things. In the moment when I will have money, I will be happy. Anyway, Animal Farm in this super strange edition. I feel like people who like Animal Farm and don't like 1984 don't really get Animal Farm, or don't really get 1984, or are just too tired or well, not interested enough in Orwell. Keep the Aspidistra Flying is amazing. It's basically always the same content as Animal Farm and 1984, sort of ish, but in this case, I feel like this is the proper prelude to 1984, in which you have all the themes, but none of the boring discussion about other things. The Bloody Chamber by Angela Carter. This is my favorite collection of short stories ever. It's a retelling of fables and fairy tales done in a feminist fashion, and I don't feel like I like that because it's feminist, because I don't really care about that discussion. but I feel like this is a good step into interpreting how fairy tales influence people, because they are way more explained. Amazing. They are way more explained than they usually are. And so if you read this one, it sort of opens your eyes to the hidden meaning of fairy tales. And then I have the the first two books in the Mary Carr autobiography series. And I loved The Liar's Club. I didn't like at all Cherry, so I don't know whether I will buy the third one and read it, but I feel like I want to. And we can go down. Let me do this cinematic transition, and let's go here. Well, there are a few CDs here, but you don't really care about those, right? So here, apart from paper, we have a tower made of Vonnegut's novels and collection of short stories. I'm sorry about the sun. So I was reading them in order, then I stopped because I moved to Germany and I didn't buy any more physical copies of books for a while. I should continue, but the collection of short stories are this one down here, which I bought for €2, and it's While Mortals Sleep, and this one in green, which is Welcome to the Monkey House. This special edition, this is probably the most well done, is that English, collection of short stories ever, because it's done properly. And I mean, you can clearly see the thought behind how they put the stories together, and also there are amazing short stories in here. You should read this one. And then we have novels, Play a Piano, which I liked, I didn't love. The Sirens of Titan, which I loved, and people should read this one instead of Slaughterhouse Number 5, because this one is way better, even though I love Slaughterhouse Number 5. Mother Night, which I don't get why people read, because it's terrible. Cat's Cradle is nice. God Bless You, Mr. Rosewater is amazing. The Breakfast of Champions is okay, and the last one here, up here, is Slapstick, which is different from all the other ones, and I didn't quite like it, but because I'm not really interested in that type of cinema, and that type of narration is based on that type of cinema. Then we have Sanderson's Place in the Universe, with Elantris, his first published book. It's nice, but you can clearly see that this is the first book he published. Warbreaker, which is nice, and together with Mistborn, the Mistborn trilogy, it's one of the places to go if you want to start reading high fantasy coming from a place of young adult or urban fantasy. I loved it, actually. They were standalones, now he's making series of both, so I'm not really happy about this whole thing, but it's okay. I quite trust that he will give them justice. Again, Mistborn, and the first book in the Stormlight Archives, which is The Way of Kings. I can't wait to read the second one and the third one, but I want them in this edition, and so I will probably get them in ebooks and then buy the physical copy when this edition comes out, simply because I feel like I'm collecting them now. And yeah, I would cheat on the editions if I didn't get these ones. And we can skip this one because it's the most stupid book ever. John Williams with Stoner here. This book is everything. Is written with the most amazing writing ever. Read that. Yellowbirds by Kevin Powers. I feel like people have written better books about war and traumas. And the last one is Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll, which is my favorite book by him, because I only read 2 books and I preferred this one to Alice in Wonderland. Okay, so don't judge me about these shelves. They are on what used to be my bed, and so it's a bit hard to film here. So if I'm bad at filming, it's somebody else's fault, it's not mine. And it's also, I mean, it's just a bunch of books that have to find another place, and they are here because I've read them before I moved into Germany. I moved to Germany and whatnot. So let me do this thing. What Happened to Mr. Y or Something by Scarlett Johansson. Thomas. It's terrible. 3 Revenge Tragedies by 3 different authors, actually. It's a collection. I can't do that. Okay, sorry. I'm not a vlogger. It's a collection of 3 revenge tragedies made by Penguin. They are all amazing. L'invenzione della madre by Peano. So this is the invention of the mother. I hope it's translated. This book is amazing. It's about the relationship of a man with his mother, and in particular with the death of his mother. A book by Lesko. It's whatever. I don't know what this book is translated to. I mean, I don't know what's the actual title. The Europeans by Henry James. I like this book. It's a cute book about the difference between Americans and English people that we know exist and are there and whatnot, but it's not amazing. You can't say what this book is, but I have another edition of this book later on. The first 49 stories by Hemingway. I loved some of them. I hated some of them. Overall, it's an amazing book and I should read more by Hemingway. I don't know why I haven't done anything yet. The Old Curiosity Shop by Dickens. This is quite cute and it's quite a nice book. It's Dickens, but it's Dickens at its best, I think. Some people may say that I'm wrong. Dr. Faustus by Thomas Mann. So as you can see, I'm quite a fan of the whole Faustus thing. Faustus, whatever. So if Goethe's Faust was about philosophy in science, Mann's Faustus is philosophy in art. But okay, the plot is basically the same, even though, well, it's not really. This is set in today's time for Mann, so the end of the 19th century, sorry. The Bat by Nesbo, amazing crime novel. I should read more by the author. And yeah, so this is The Desert of the Tartars, something, by Dino Buzzati. It's an amazing book. I hope it's translated in English. You should read that. And I have the William Tell by Schiller, which is a play, so it shouldn't be here. But it's nice. It's not the best book ever, though. And 2 books in English. The second one is The Day of the Triffids by John Wyndham, which I loved. It's a nice sci-fi book, and it's a nice classical sci-fi book. Everything is falling, whatever. And The Master of Petersburg by Coetzee, of which I loved the writing. I didn't really like the plot. And we can go on if I can manage to move here. Okay, so this is a collection of manga about robots, so we can skip that. But I like robots that fight people, fight aliens. A thing, and a collection of short stories curated by Asimov. De Rerum Natura by Lucretius or something in English, whatever. This is like the first scientific book of Roman history. Thing, and this, I can't remember the title in English, but it's by Steinbeck. What's the thing? The Grapes of Wrath. But this is not the complete thing because it was censored in Italy. So I have no idea why, but yeah, I will read that one first, I think, or that in English. And also it's a nice edition. It's an old edition, so it's nice to have old books. Then we have Space by James Michener, of which I loved the first part and I hated everything that came after page 200. It became really boring, so I'm not sure I will read anything else by the author. Then we have some Calvinos that I would have to translate, and I have no idea how to translate that, but Reed Calvino is one of my favorite authors, at least in Italy. And some other things, some other noteworthy things are The Origins of the Species by Charles Darwin, which I haven't finished yet. And there must be something here. Yeah, well, I have an edition of The Dead by James Joyce, which is the last story in Dubliners, because I thought that I hadn't enjoyed the whole collection after reading A Portrait of the Artist. I thought that I had problems with the translation, but I was quite sure that it wasn't the case, because I mean that translation is more than fine. And so I thought, like, oh well, let's try and read this one in original and see if I have problems with it. And I do have problems with it anyway. So yeah, I just don't like Dubliners. I like the other books he wrote, but I have no idea why. And here I have some more mangas and whatnot, but I can't really say anything noteworthy about them, so I will stop here. So I do hope you liked it, despite the fact that the second part was a bit confused and a bit overwhelming. But yeah, let me know if you liked it, and if you think the same thing that I think about books. And in case you have nothing to tell me, I guess we'll see each other, or you see me in my next video.